When most people hear the ends of the earth, they picture a metaphor, a poetic way of saying somewhere far off. But the Book of Enoch treats it as a place with a fixed location, measured gates, and something sealed behind them, waiting. It does not describe a mood. It describes a spot you could walk to. And in chapter 18, Enoch says he did exactly that. He writes that he came to the edge of the world. There he saw the cornerstone of the earth. He saw the four winds that bear up the sky, that hold the whole vault of heaven in place. And then he saw something no sermon ever prepares you for. 7 stars, bound and burning, thrown together into a place like a great mountain of fire, held there for breaking the command. 7. Bound, still burning, confined for a crime. Read that again. Not as poetry, as a floor plan, a location with an edge, a foundation stone, 4 pillars of wind, and a prison with prisoners inside it. That is not the language of symbol. That is the language of a report. And already you feel the first question pulling at you. What did those 7 stars do to end up bound and on fire at the end of the world? Hold that. Because before we follow the crime, you need to know why this text deserves your attention at all. Because the easy move here is to wave it off. To say this is some late curiosity, a strange book that never mattered. It is not. 11 separate copies of the Book of Enoch surfaced among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, in the caves above the water. 11. That is more copies than several books that stayed inside the Bible. It was preserved in the Ge'ez language at Aksum, in Ethiopia, copied by hand and guarded for centuries. It is still scripture today in the Ethiopian Orthodox canon, read as holy, never dropped. And it was carried back to Europe by the traveler James Bruce in 1773, after the West had all but forgotten it existed. This is not a fringe invention. It is a text that was left out. And it keeps count. That is the thing you have to sit with. This book counts. It measures. It numbers what it sees. And it starts right there in chapter 18, with the prison of the stars that transgressed the command. Enoch does not say they were punished in some vague, abstract way, off in the dark. He says they were confined, in a specific place, for a specific reason. A confinement with a location, a shape, and a floor. Then the walk continues, and it gets stranger because it gets more precise. In chapter 33, Enoch is taken to the ends of the earth in the east, and there he sees the gates. Gates set into the sky, the openings through which the stars come out, each one counted, each one measured, each one given a number. Not a hazy horizon. Doors. Counted doors, standing in order at the eastern edge of the world, with the stars passing through them like something released on schedule. And then in chapter 34, he turns north. And he sees more gates. The gates of the winds this time. Again counted. Again ordered. Doors set into the structure of the sky, each with its own place, each with its own number. The wind does not just blow in this account. It comes through a door that someone built and someone counts. So stop and look at what has stacked up. A cornerstone. 4 winds holding the sky. 7 stars bound in fire. Gates in the east for the stars. Gates in the north for the winds. Every one of them numbered. And here is where it should start to bother you, in a good way. If this were only imagery, only a beautiful ancient way of saying the world is big and God is great, why does it keep coming with measurements? Why the count? Symbol does not usually hand you a floor plan. We will press hard on that question because it does not go away. It gets sharper. But first, there is something you need to see, and it changes how you hear all of this. Because if Enoch alone described a bounded earth with real doors, you could set it aside as one strange man's vision. He is not alone. This same architecture, gates that open, foundations that hold, a heaven you can enter through counted doors, shows up in a book that never left the canon. A book sitting on shelves right now. A book most of the people who dismiss Enoch would swear they trust completely. And it says the same thing. Look at what Genesis actually does with the flood. Most people picture the water just rising, higher and higher, until the whole world is under it. That is not how chapter 7 describes it. The windows of heaven are opened. The fountains of the great deep burst open. 2 sets of doors, one above and one below, and the water is let through them. Not a slow tide. A release. And that is the point I want you to sit with. This is Genesis. The book nobody left out. The book on the shelf in every church. And it is describing the same architecture Enoch walked past at the ends of the earth. A sky and a deep that open and shut. Doors with a mechanism. Doors that someone can hold closed and someone can let go. Enoch counts the gates. Genesis opens them. Same structure, 2 different books. Then there is Jubilees. Jubilees was kept in the very same Gehazi line that carried Enoch down to us, copied by the same Ethiopian hands, sitting in the same tradition that never threw either one out. And Jubilees tells the same story from its own angle. The heavens are ordered, set in place, given their divisions. The watchers come down. And the watchers are bound. The same binding, the same sentence, held in the same way Enoch saw the 7 stars held. In Jubilees chapter 5, the descent and the binding sit right next to the flood, one flowing into the other, exactly where Enoch's gates and Enoch's prison would sit. 3 books now, 1 structure. So the earth has doors. Fine. But here is where the whole thing turns, and it turns on a single word. When the text describes the bound stars and the sealed place that holds them, it uses a word in the JS. And for a long time, that word gets read one way, the obvious way, the way you would expect. Punishment. A prison. A sentence carried out. But go to the root. Go under the surface of the word. The word in the JAs is not the word for punishment. It is the word for holding. Something held is something expected back. Stay with that. You do not hold what you are finished with. You hold what you intend to bring out again. A thing thrown away is destroyed. A thing held is stored. And the text does not reach for the word that ends something. It reaches for the word that keeps it. Before we move on, stop for a second. What you just heard, that the word is holding, not punishment, is the part that changes everything, but it only makes sense written out next to the passages themselves. The chapters, the cross-references, the translated text, I put all of it into a written document. It's linked below and the QR code is on your screen. Take 5 seconds, grab it, and come back, because what comes next builds directly on it. Now back to the text. Because I want to be fair to the reading that pushes back on all of this. There are serious scholars, careful people who have spent their lives inside these manuscripts, who read the ends of the earth and the gates as something else entirely. To them, this is ancient cosmology, symbolic geography. The way people 3,000 years ago pictured a world they could not travel. A sky held up like a tent, doors in the east where the sun climbs out, a great deep underneath. Poetry about the shape of things, not a report from the edge of the map. And there are real reasons to read it that way. Every old culture drew the heavens as a structure. Enoch is doing what his neighbors did. I take that reading seriously. But it has to answer one thing. Symbol does not usually come with a floor plan. When you write a metaphor, you do not stop to count. You do not give the reader the number of gates, and then the direction each one faces, and then which star comes out of which door. But Enoch does. He counts the gates. He measures them. He names the directions, east in chapter 33, north in chapter 34. He keeps handing you numbers when a poem would hand you a feeling. Symbol does not usually come with a floor plan. And this text keeps drawing one. So put the two things together. A place described with measurements, with counted doors and named directions, built like a real structure. And a word for what is inside it that means holding, not ending. Line those up, and the confinement in chapter 18 stops sounding like a grave. It starts sounding like storage. Something is being kept in there, on purpose, in a place someone bothered to measure. Which brings us to the one passage everything has been walking toward. The final image in chapter 18 of the place beyond the last gate, where the disobedient host is confined until the appointed time, not destroyed, held. And the exact words the text uses decide what that gate is really for. So listen to the words themselves. Chapter 18. Enoch is standing at the edge of everything, past the cornerstone, past the winds, and he comes to a place with no floor above it and no sky beneath. And there he sees them, the 7 stars, bound together, burning, like great mountains flaming in the void. He asks his guide what they did, and the answer is plain. These are the stars that transgressed the command of the Lord. And they are bound here, the text says, until the day of the fulfillment of their judgment, until the appointed time. Read that slowly. The stars that transgressed the command, held in the fiery prison. And the sentence does not end with the word destroyed. It does not end with the word finished. It ends with a clock. Until. Sit on that one word for a second. Until. It carries an ending inside it. Not the ending of the stars. The ending of their waiting. A season with a last day. The text is not describing a grave. A grave has no until. A grave is the end of the sentence. This is a term. A holding period with a date at the far side of it that the text does not print but absolutely implies. Something kept until a moment is something that has a moment coming. And now the two threads pull tight. Remember the 7 stars we met at the edge of the world. And remember the word underneath them in the Jez, the root that means holding, keeping, watching over, not the word for punishment. Put those two facts in the same hand. A host kept, in a word that means kept, until a day that is coming. That is not the description of a thing that is over. That is the description of a thing that is expected back. So here is the reading, and I want to be exact about what this is. This is interpretation. Mark it. The text records the stars, the prison, the fire, the appointed time. That is what is written. What I am about to say is what I believe those pieces add up to, and you are free to weigh it and reject it. Read against that holding word in the Jez. The sealed gate at the ends of the earth is not a dungeon of the finished. It is a threshold of the expected. A door with a hinge. A seal on something that is being saved, not something that is being erased. The structure suggests a door made to be opened, not a door made to stay shut forever. The text does not make this connection. The structure does. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Because step back and look at the whole walk now, all at once. Chapter 18 gives you the cornerstone of the earth, the pillars of the sky, and the fiery prison of the 7 stars. Chapter 33 takes you east to the gates through which the stars come out, counted, each with a number and a name. Chapter 34 turns you north to the gates the winds pass through. 3 chapters. One thing. The earth is a real place with real doors, real counts, real seals. The same order that lays the cornerstone hangs the gates in the sky and locks the prison of the stars. It is one blueprint from edge to edge. Doors that open to let the stars out in the east. Doors that hold the stars in at the world's end. The same hand drew both. And a door that was built with a count and a name and a hinge is a door that was built to be worked. That is the pattern that ran under every passage. Not poetry with a locked ending. Architecture with a schedule. And here is the part that I keep coming back to. Think about what happened to this book. A text that says the sealed gate is made to open. That text was itself sealed away, and then it was kept. It was copied onto scrolls and pressed into the caves at Qumran, more copies than several books that made the canon. It was carried south and guarded in Ge'ez in the treasuries at Aksum when the rest of the Christian world had let it fall out of its Bible. It stayed scripture in Ethiopia, read, never buried. And in 1773, James Bruce carried it back to Europe, out of the one place that never stopped holding it. Everyone who wanted this book gone had centuries to finish the job. And it did not go. A record about a door made to open was not destroyed. It was held, kept, watched over, preserved, in the exact sense of that Ge'ez root for a later reading. The book did to itself the thing it describes at the ends of the earth. It was sealed, and it waited, and it came back at an appointed time. So that is what waits past the last gate, as chapter 18 reports it. 7 stars, bound, burning, held, not ended, until the day of their judgment. And that is what the gate that holds them shut was, if you read the holding word plainly. A threshold, not a tomb. Tell me which passage carries the most weight for you. Chapter 18, chapter 33, or chapter 34. Sit with them. Then decide for yourself what that gate was built to do.